If you hadn't run away, every time I asked you stay, you would sleep right next to me tonight. But you didn't know me, all you wanted was a game to play, and you couldn't handle that I had my ways. I found your magic and your side chicks, I'm a winner, babe. And you didn't win this, it's a part of the game. In the beginning I just didn't know that you're an enemy I held too close. Now I know, 'cause you did everything to prove me wrong. You were not the guy I thought. Now I'm beating you at your own. Yeah. If I got $1 for every time you slam the door, I would be the richest girl alive. And you didn't know me, all you wanted was a game to play, and you couldn't handle that I had my way.
Hello. Hi.
Everybody.
Oh my gosh, guys, give us a thumbs up or tell us if you like our new intro. Like, it's really girly. It's so cool. Let us know what you think.
Yes, it's very us, I guess.
I know, right?
Yes, indeed.
How's everyone doing?
Good.
Hello,
good.
viewers, wherever you're tuning in from. Hi, how's it going?
Hello.
Thank you for coming on today. Please do be a supporter as you always are and share this live today. We have an interesting discussion and we're literally only going to take an hour of your time.
Yes, sir.
It
Gonna
is
be on
not
time
a long
today.
show. We're going straight to it. But we have our interesting topic as we do as per usual. But jump in. We're going to give you some time to build the audience, spread the word, and let them know that Girls Say It is live again for another fantastic show, hopefully. And we'll be interacting with many of you in the audience as well, where possible. We'll want to hear from you. We want to speak to you. Those that want to jump in, we might have a spontaneous moment where we say we want to take someone from the audience and hear your perspective on what we're about to say or discuss. We'll see how it goes, where the weather takes us. But share. Comment. We're looking forward to interacting with you tonight on this show, which is about loyalty. So we want to talk about being loyal. Loyal is such a big word in so many things. There's loyalty in your friendships, there's loyalty in your family, there's loyalty towards your spouse, there's loyalty to whoever you want to be loyal to. There's loyal in every area of your life. And everybody knows that is such a strong word. Like, who is loyal to you? Who is your inner person? Who's your personal people? Who's your backbone? Who's your village? You know what I'm saying? So ladies, let's do this. One of the things that stemmed off this topic and one of the triggers that we said that why we wanted to discuss this was the recent events that has happened. And as usual, it tries to phase out, but it's not completely phased out. And that's kind of how this topic particularly resurrected. And that's the issue of the royal family, which the whole world knows about anyway, I believe, especially if you live in the UK and America.
If you don't live under a rock, basically.
You're not one of your American citizens. So, yeah, so to speak, I'm sure everybody knows about that story between Meghan Markle and our prince. We still call him a prince. As far as we're concerned, Prince Harry is a prince.
He's the prince. He's just the prince. Like, whatever.
From him. So, yes, of course, that was a big topic about how he left a family that we know is so strong, so united. Everybody knows them across the world. And they've got that the royal blood that connects them. And everything about them is literally prim and proper, has to be done literally by the traditional books of the English standard. And so, of course, Meghan came into that family, which most of you know about, and it's like mayhem kind of started, so they will call it. And of course, you know, she was united with her spouse, and our loving Prince Charming Harry took his wife, or took the side of his wife, and then started a new family. They started their life again over in America. So that's a little bit about that, and we can always refer that as an example, but we're just telling you where the topic has stemmed from. Now we can see a man has left his family, and he has clinged to his wife.
Right.
And they have become one, and he is jetted off
and
to
to
start his new
become
unit.
one.
Yes. Now we know that this is always a debatable topic, quite controversial in the sense that people, struggle with this on a day-to-day basis in families. That's why we thought we'll bring it up. Like, where does your loyalty lie? Is it lying with your family? Because some people find it hard to let go of their families, or is it loyalty to your spouse? Be it if you're married, be it if you're in a relationship as well, because sometimes when you're in a relationship, you're working towards marriage. So of course you're trying to work towards being dedicated to your spouse in that relationship to make it thrive and work. And then you've got the battle of the family who may not necessarily like, the way your relationship is going or how you're so attached to your spouse. And they're thinking, what about us? Kind of thing. Or you've got those families that do not want to let go and they want to be involved even when you're married. They want to have some form of a stronghold, similar to how Harry's situation was with Meghan anyway. They still want to have an influence of your life, what you should do, how you should do it, and everything like that. And really, that's what we want to discuss. How much should a family have involvement in your relationship? Yes, we believe that man and woman come together and they create their own, but then what level should also the extended family, and even those that believe that they're still close, like your parents, your siblings, how much involvement should they still have in being so close to you? And we do know that many, especially in our culture, so to speak, family is everything, and they believe that and families marrying families is not man and wife. If you're marrying my daughter, you're marrying the whole family. If you're marrying my son, you're marrying the whole family. So you're taking the whole baggage with you. So yes, we are very much involved. So when we tell you we're coming to your house, you better be cooking for us as well, not just for him. So there's just so many factors that can stem from this. But this is what we want to dig out. And I'm just giving you a brief summary of this interesting discussion that's about to come up. And of course, we also want to touch on the different cultures and the interracial and interracial relationships where people are coming from different backgrounds. You could be married to an English person and you're married to a Caribbean person, or you can be married to a white and Asian or whatever, black and Asian, etc. How are people dealing with those dynamics when the families come in the mix? How much are they so connected? So we will delve with that. I'm not going to talk too much anymore, but let's talk about this loyalty, guys. First of all, I guess before we even jump into the gun of marriage, let's talk about loyalty in a relationship. How loyal should you really be to your spouse? How much you be standing by them, defending them, being there for them, being a voice for them, showing them that you're ride or die compared to your family who may not necessarily like that particular person?
Wow.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Sharpshooter going.
Well, first of all I gotta say is whoever gets this in the comments gets a giveaway. I'm just gonna lay this out right now. Yeah, competition time. All of you guys that listen to music should know.
Okay, we know what you're
These ain't anyhow. I'll break the ice with that. So yeah, loyalty. Personally, I think that when you enter into a relationship with someone, there has to be a level of agreement. And especially when you want to go towards marriage, you need to understand that you are starting up, if you like, a new branch of your family. A new branch, though, of the family, not just a continuation, but a new branch, because there's so much more involved. And I would say even in a relationship where they're not married yet, your partner is still quite important. I know that we haven't exchanged the vows yet. We haven't handed over any rings, any handcuffs yet, but there has to be a level at which you see this person that you are in a relationship with or in this agreement with. And I think that if it's so easy for, I don't want to say external people, because in a way, your family are not external people, but they at the same time are external people. If it's so easy for external people to come in and move you and sway you from this side to that side, or cause issue within your relationship, then that doesn't look like something that can be long term, if you ask me. And we have to also understand that there are some parents out there and some family members out there that like to live their dreams through their children and through the younger generation, sometimes these individuals get married to people who they know they probably shouldn't have married. You know, and what you don't want to do is be the mini them, you know. So I would say, as much as possible, try and be independent, try and understand that sometimes no two people are alike, you know. What interests you may not interest another person. What you consider as being loyal may not be the same as another person. So it really has to be quite personal, the decisions that you make in your relationship, and how you treat your spouse, especially when you get married. Most importantly, when you are married, because things become even more complicated. Things become much more complicated. We've got house issues involved, bills involved, kids involved, and so much more involved. So if you're so easily wavered by an external influence who's not part of your ship relationship, then be prepared to have a broken boat, basically.
Yeah.
Yes. What about you, Winnie?
So the question is it loyalty between the husband and the wife, or are we going
loyalty and actually relationships before you even become a husband and wife? Like how much? Because you know we've spoken about this and we've touched on it before. Most times you find that some women in particular like to do the most for their spouse. I'm not their spouse, sorry, let me correct it, but the most for their partner before marriage. So this is a way of probably just showing or proving to them that I am capable of being a wifey material. So I got to do the most for you. I got to be around my man. And you know, sometimes families don't like that when you're too attached to just a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Like, come on, give it some slack. You're not even married yet. Like, is that a right thing to be saying to somebody that is trying to prospectively work on their future? Because at the end of the day, you've got to start from somewhere. And how much should you really be giving? You know, should your loyalty lie towards your man, for example, when you know that maybe, which a lot of people will probably struggle with, when you know your parents don't necessarily like that person, or an individual doesn't particularly like that person for whatever personal reasons best known to them, and they somehow feel that they have a say because maybe they feel that their daughter deserves better or their son deserves better, which is often the case, you know, so to speak. So how much should one be loyal to their man in those conditions, or loyal to their woman in given those conditions, in the fact that they're not even married yet?
Well, personally, before you're married, you're loyalty with your family. Hey, Miss Rolo.
Hi, ladies. Sorry I'm late. I had childcare issues.
Those of you
yeah. See, that's
like it is.
You get it. This is real life. Welcome.
I'm here now.
So yeah.
Yeah, so before you're married, your loyalty is with your family. It's 100% with your family, because I think that, you know, there's a saying, the saying is love is blind, and sometimes it even blinds common sense. And I think that sometimes you need your family to protect you from certain things that you're not able to see because you're actually in it. And I think that personally for me, I think that also to some extent applies even when you're in marriage, but it depends on your age. I think that if you're young, then you need to lean more on family and their experiences and the advice that they can give you, because, you know, they have been through it before. And it's not that you should think that you're always right, you know, because you haven't experienced a marriage before, because you haven't experienced a serious relationship before, doesn't mean that you shouldn't open your mind and your ears to take in advice. Whether you heed to it or not is a whole different dynamic. But I do think that, to cut it short anyway, I do think that before marriage, whether you're a man or a woman, your loyalty still remains with your family. That's all I'm going to say about it.
Control.
I think it's a tricky one. And I'm going to throw this question open to Qatari as well. I call you Qatari, Miss Rona, beg your pardon, all the way from Qatar. But it is a tricky one. And like, you know, somebody has said in the comments, some families are problematic, not all families are right. And that is true. And this is what I want us to bear in mind as well. You know, right now, Miss Rhoda, we are talking about loyalty before you actually get married. So where should your loyalties lie before you get married? To the person that you are aiming to possibly, because I believe that when people get in a relationship, that's where they want it to end at the end of the day. you know, in the good terms. And then sometimes families are fighting against that. They fight against that person even being close to engaging you or being the person that you're going to marry, because they simply don't like them for whatever reason. So how much involvement should they really be having, or a say should they be having? And where should your loyalties lie? Anyway, where does your loyalty lie before you're married? To the person that is considered your partner, or still to your family? Yeah, how do you create that divide and balance?
It's a very, very, very good question, and it's a seriously tough one. Personally, I think before you're married, anything can happen. So anybody can just cut ties easily, is what I'm trying to say. So in terms of you being loyal to your spouse, I think I'm hungry. To your spouse, I think at a certain extent there is a level of loyalty towards them. But if we're going to compare it to, to your family, I think it's safer. I would say it's safer to be loyal more to your family, only because until someone marries you, that person can literally just up and leave at any minute. And then what happens to you then? The place that you're going to go back to is mostly your family, to be honest. So I'm kind of 50-50. I'm not sure, to be honest. I'll put it that way. But I would say, in terms of looking at it from a safety point of view, I would probably say your loyalty lies just a little bit more towards your family, based on the fact that this person is not yet is not yet bound to you, in terms of, legally, or even, with God co-signing it. The guy can up and leave so easily at any time. And then where are you going to go to? You're going to go back to your family. But under the same breath, I would say that there are some families that are really toxic. And sometimes when they think they have your best interest, sometimes they don't. And I know it sounds weird saying that, but, sometimes with family, just the fact that you're blood related that's where it starts and that's where it stops. Yeah. There's nothing more to it. And so you need to be careful the level of advice or the access that someone has into your personal life, even if it's family, because I think the most important thing is to ascertain, does this person have my best interest at heart? I think that's an important question when we talk about loyalty towards your family, especially in toxic families, because not all families are hunky-dory and have your best interest at heart.
Yeah.
Just one more thing to add, sorry. Also, the way I'm looking at it is like your relationship is like a training ground before you get married.
Exactly.
So it's like if your family come in and they just don't like that person, because that can happen, there are people out there who believe, I don't like this person just because I don't like their face, and God forbid your partner that you're in a relationship could be one of those individuals that one of your family members or a group of your family members don't like because they just don't like her face or his face. So I think looking at it from the perspective of your relationship, at least the one that you're taking seriously, is a training ground. And if you're not going to gain your independence in your relationship, then when are you going to start being independent about your choices?
Yeah. And to be honest, we can even extend this further, which is kind of what I'm thinking now. Let's take it from the boyfriend and girlfriend's perspective. Okay, you might have a bit of an ear for your family, you can entertain it. What about when you're engaged and you're due to be married? Let's spin it off what Anders Slays has just rightly said, which is your training ground. What would which side are you taking then, when it comes to the loyalty and you're preparing for marriage? And of course, families need to meet. Families do their research, and I'm stemming this off the scenario of what we've spoken about, who is literally the reason why we're having this in the first place, the Meghan and the Prince Harry scenario. I mean, obviously you can see he's from a very strong-willed family, and some people they've got their family seriously involved, and I'm sure he would have had a lot of fights, a lot of back and forth, a lot of things that we can't even comprehend or imagine that would have gone on behind the scenes. I mean, Meghan herself said she didn't know much about the British culture, so to speak. She just Googled the royal family.
Don't lie. That's what I was thinking when I heard that.
Googled the royal family and didn't really do her research. And that's how she just entered you know, and I believe, you know, many people will be, or few people will be going through, no, many people rather will be going through this kind of thing, where everybody wants to impress each other's family to get their foot right into that married title. So we're talking about engagement now. Now, where your loyalty lies there, when your mom doesn't like your partner that you're presenting, or your dad doesn't like the partner that you're presenting, is not good enough for his daughter, or she's not good enough for her son, you know, which is obviously usually the common one when it comes to mums and their sons, or the dads and their daughters. Where should your loyalty lie when you're engaged? Let's make it a bit more complex.
Okay. Let me jump in there quickly. Let me jump in there quickly. I think that, you know, in that scenario, we're gone from level 1, boyfriend and girlfriend, to level 2. So a different tactic and approach needs to be, you know, taken. And so, in my opinion, I would say your loyalty should lie with yourself more. And I'll tell you why I say
That's
that.
it, though, isn't it? Yeah.
I'll tell you why I say that, because if, you know, you're in a situation where your mother or your potential husband's mother-in-law does not like you for silly petty reasons, or she's just a winch, aka a witch.
A witch.
You know, what I mean by that is, you know, she's just a difficult woman for being difficult sake, no real reason why, or maybe
acting like one.
Exactly. So in that scenario, I think you need to have a good rapport and communication with your spouse to let him know how you feel, communicate, you know, the issues and challenges that you're having, and make sure that spouse is on your side, kind of thing, or on your team. So your loyalty should lie with yourself and your spouse. That's my opinion, because in such a scenario, it sets up the foundation for when you get married. Do you get? Let's say, for example, now you're saying, okay, I'm going to be my loyalty will lie with my family. Then it means that when you guys eventually get married, you're not on the same team. When you get married, you're supposed to be a team. It's supposed to be you and your husband. Do you understand? So if you're bringing in external parties and third members that have already married you, your mum and dad have already married, so why are they poking their nose in your business if it isn't for if it isn't to uplift you guys? Then if it's to tear you down and to make things difficult for you guys, I don't think that any loyalty should lie in that situation. I think that, you know, you guys need to work together as a potential husband and wife, and start building your foundation from that point, from that engagement point, because that will set the pace for when you go into marriage. Trust and believe.
And I think as well, like, just thinking about it, I know I'm just going to throw a spanner in the works and just say it like it is. Do your parents or do your family actually need to like your spouse? Do they need to get on? Do they have, I mean, in this century, not in the kind of centuries where you'll marry someone and bring them to your tent where your family also reside. I'm talking about when you can move to a whole new continent. Do your family really need to like your spouse? I would say no. I think it's helpful. It's nice. But the truth is, if they don't like each other because of me, I guess they can be amicable at least, you know. I would hope. But anyhow, just moving on a little bit from that, I think that it is, as we've been saying, it is very tricky, because one angle I'm going to take is this one, because I feel like I've witnessed this. There are some parents who believe that because they have invested to a degree in their kids, like, for example, good education, good this and good that, tutoring, they've invested so heavily in the upbringing of their children, they think that nobody is worthy. No man, no woman, unless she or he is either above their child or, I don't know, something else. And then, of course, as a Christian, there are some Christian parents who make the statement that no, anyone is fine as long as they are believers. And it's like, okay, you bring this believer woman or this believer man, and they're like, actually, nah, you know. So how are you really gonna get your parents to latch on and really like your partner or your spouse? It's going to be very difficult. And I really do feel like it's a choice that they have to make. They have to look and assess the situation. What are the reasons that they have a problem with my partner or my spouse? You know, what is the deep rooted issue? if there is nothing concrete that they can draw out that also concerns you as well, I'm not sure that I would bother myself with how they feel so much. Because as I said before, you can move to a whole new continent and only see each other once in every 3 years and have your peace of mind. You know, we should be able to think that just because, I mean, we do owe a level of loyalty to our family, and that is the loyalty of your basic family, like to your sister, to your mother, to your father. There's the respect there. There's honoring them. But honoring and respect doesn't mean that you do every single thing that they say. In fact, you can show them honor by making the right choices, irregardless. You know, this is the 21st century. We don't need to be living in a way that limits our thinking or limits our exposure to the rest of the world and the possibilities that are out there. Your spouse may not even be in the country that you're living in. It may be in a completely different country. So why must you follow the guidelines and the rules that your parents have set? Remember their time. I'm sorry, I'm going on a bit. Their time, the way that the men and the women were in their time is actually quite different. The responsibilities that women had back then are different. The responsibilities that men had back then were different. The priorities were completely different, you know, so maybe not completely different, but they're quite different, you know. So what they would consider to be equality in a woman or a man now may back then rather may not be the same qualities that are really required to have a healthy relationship now.
I kind of disagree with you guys.
With such passion.
Up to a certain extent, like there are things that I agree with, but there are some fundamental stuff that I disagree with. And the fundamental stuff that I disagree with is that sometimes you guys would like to go on Google, or you guys would like to go to a relationship coach or relationship advice, or your friends, and you would rather take the advice of complete strangers than
that's
take
true.
the advice of somebody who knows you very well. And sometimes, like I said before, sometimes we just want to be right. We don't want to accept that there are flaws, for example, before marriage. So this is in the courting phase. We're blind to it. And sometimes we do have people who, this is coming from the perspective of you're in a healthy family, by the way. Of course, the toxic, I completely side with you guys on that. But if you're in a healthy family, to not actually take the advice or to not take even some of the talking, I think it's super dangerous. It's exceptionally dangerous, because how you're behaving is that you're assuming that you know all there is to know about life or marriage or even engagements. So I think if you come from a loving home, in my opinion, I would really, really open an ear and at least listen.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
I agree with you.
Sorry, go on.
So can I just say, just to take it up a notch and to bring it, back home and keep it 100 as I am supposed to do. Let me speak about my experience, okay? Without really calling out some names, but keeping the story as true to its content as possible. So when I was about to get married to my husband, okay, not all the family members were on board, and the notion that I gauged from the whole experience is that there is some sort of unspoken word out there that whenever your daughter is marrying a guy, you're supposed to make it difficult for him.
Tell me, this is it. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but that was one of the notions that I gathered from our experience journeying from engagement to marrying. It was that we're not giving our daughter away for free. I think that's an African thing, like an African cultural thing. I'm not sure if it happens in other cultures, but I know that in being a Nigerian, and when it comes to like traditional, because you have like two types of marriage. You have like the traditional marriage where the families have to come together and meet, and there's a list for your dowry. Some people still do that.
Tell them,
where they say when the daughter's mother says, okay, I want XYZ, and she gives them a list. And some of the things on the list may be deemed inappropriate, some may be deemed outrageous. And then there may be issues that stem from that. Now, how do we tackle things of that nature? If, for example, let's say, your mother or father is, making things difficult for you in terms of, they think that, I don't want to give my daughter away for free, therefore let me jam this guy's pocket well, make sure I get my money's worth, right? Because I'm not giving my daughter away for free. Because if I give my daughter away for free, he's going to treat her like a freebie. What do you do with freebies? You don't hold it with much value. You don't award it a lot of respect or and treat it as precious. So for that's the ideology, is that if I make things hard for him and let him know that there are tough people in this family, he won't mess up. So from that standpoint, I experienced that in my engagement to marriage journey. So I just wanted to get you guys' perspective on that. Like, what would be your approach in that situation? Would your loyalty lie with your mother or father who's perpetrating that kind of ideology, or would your loyalty lie with your spouse if your spouse was uncomfortable with it and he was like, look, I'm not doing all this, I'm not giving your mum £50,000, I'm not giving your mum 20 chickens and a free goat.
and yams.
Is the list negotiable, or is it non-negotiable in a dowry situation? And then where would your loyalties lie, even without dowry, but just mingling it all together? Like, I'd like to get your perspective.
Let me answer that. Sorry, my perspective from a married person as well, and culture. Let me just say, first of all, it's all down to culture, like you rightly said. And this is the stronghold. The English people have their culture. We too, as Nigerians or even Africans, have our culture as well. And it's a hard thing, because some of them even try and back it up with the Bible and saying, Rebecca and Isaac and so the dowry was paid there, and all these other examples that they like to stem up. But yeah, just to get straight to the point of answering that. Now, this is one of the tricky things that we talk about when you've got families that are like, that's my child, my seed. I know what I've invested, so I need my money back, and I'm gonna get it back from my spouse. But that's such a wrong. Personally, it's a wrong mentality. I know sometimes people hold strong with their cultures and stuff like that. Some of us hold strong with our Bible. Fair enough, whatever. But from a married person's perspective, and to go straight to the answer to your question, personally, in that scenario, I believe that one should be standing with their spouse. And that's why I would also flip it with what I said about the engagement thing as well. I believe personally that you should stand with your spouse, because if you're saying that this is the person that you have chosen to marry, because remember, there's free choice as well, and this is the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with. Yes, your family. In this day, there is, yeah. Yes, they love you. Yes, they've brought you up. Yes, they've raised you, as I've read in some of the comments. Yes, they know you better than anybody else. Well, sometimes they don't know you, to be honest. Because they'll be surprised about their daughter, what they find out about their son. They don't really know them as deep as probably that spouse actually does, that they've just met maybe about 2 years ago or 3 years ago. Sometimes they know the inner deep secrets. They know what that daughter or son has been doing behind the scenes for a long time than the parents that have known you for 20 odd years or 30
Tell
years.
them.
Who
They'll
think
say
they know
it.
you. Because unfortunately, like with some cultures like my own, discipline has created that barrier that when they're too strict, there's some information that they'll hear about you that they will not be able to cope or handle. So you can rather share that information with your spouse, who is going to be your husband, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that need to know you inside out anyway, and that's the person that you're going to spend the rest of your life with. So I do believe that in that scenario with the dowry and where your parents are being a bit overpowering and too much, yes, that's all well and good. They will always be your family. They will always be there for you regardless, to be honest, because if they truly love you and they are blood stuck like they say they are, they will always be there for you. But your spouse is your choice, and that's who you've chosen to spend the rest of your life with, to build a new family with. And sometimes, yes, which I was going to ask later on in this live, and we will touch on it, is the boundaries needs to be created. Sometimes the realistic boundaries is to remove yourself to where you are so accessible from, to completely abroad where you're not easily accessible by these families that want to literally choke your life. You know what I mean? And yes, I know somebody said something about, partner. if they want to isolate you. Because I think somebody put in the comments there about, being isolated and being away, but you have to obviously know your spouse, because you two are the people that are going to get married. And this is where, you need to make the decision that I can say that I know this person that I'm marrying. Their family doesn't know them like I do. I know their inner secrets. I know what they've done. I know them at their worst. I know what they're capable of when they're angry and when they're tense. I know that they don't just smash the wall, that they're capable of punching my face or whatever. I know that they're easily angered, or they easily snap, or they're so sensitive. How deep do you know that spouse that you have said
exactly.
I walk down the aisle with? I think that's the bottom line question, is so that when the family do try to tense up, when the family do try to boil and show their wings by saying that, I want to collect 50,000 for you because I know what I've invested in my child, or I need an expensive dowry or car or a house. This man needs to prove himself that he's worthy of taking care of you. You can be like, no, well, sorry, he's not going to pay you because, number one, you said it, and I'm going to repeat what you say. I'm not for sale. Mom and Dad, do you really think I'm for sale? You think my life is worth money? Fine, that's your opinion. And they'll start giving you, but that's the cultural background, that's what's supposed to happen. Well, fine, ditch your culture. I ain't about the culture. What do you stand for? Me personally, I stand
some
for
parents.
So what would Jesus do?
Some parents will be priding because then this is really bad, I'm gonna say, but you know me, I'm gonna say it anyway. Some parents will be priding and say, no, my daughter is a virgin. She's a virgin. So the dowry has to be this amount. I'm sorry, mommy and daddy, your daughter is not a virgin. So her price has come down. But moving on from that, I'm not encouraging anything, by the way, wink, wink. But I do know of a couple that got married, a young couple, and they did their wedding the traditional way, and the guy had to pay a dowry now because of time has gone on and passed, and of course things don't equate to how they used to from back in the day. This woman's or this girl's or this auntie's dowry was 12 quid. That's 12 pounds for those of us that are not English. It equaled 12 pounds. Now the guy was like, during once they got married, the guy was reminding the girl, don't forget I paid my 12 pound, so don't start acting up, basically. But I mean, it was in jest, to be fair. He wasn't being serious. But 12 quid, mate. And in my mind as well, and again, this is just really extreme. If some parents need to make up their minds, because if they're gonna do things the traditional way, then let's be traditional about it all. Who's paying for the wedding? You got your dowry. Who's paying for the wedding? Okay, that's number one. And number two, when someone starts maltreating your son or your daughter, if we're doing things traditionally, what are you going to do? Are you going to say, no, daughter, come back home? Because you can't allow a man to be treating you like that. This is the 21st century. Or are you going to be doing things like back in the day? And when the guy starts pop locking, dropping your daughter, you're now going to be like, stay there whilst and just be a good wife. Don't tell your family problems to people. Yeah. What are you going to be? What is the stance that you're going to take? And I think that's what we need. That's what some parents and some young couples who are thinking about getting married need to really be thinking about. Remember that times have gone on, times have changed, number one. And number two, if they're going to be in a certain way energetic about dowry and about how they see the person that you want to marry, they need to keep that energy all the way through. You can't all of a sudden decide when it's convenient for you to be selfish. You approved, or no, before you approved, your daughter has a choice to make. I mean, there are some people who will not want you to marry someone because their features are slightly different. Like, what is that? Now, and this is real. This is not even being too extreme. This is not being outrageous, because I've heard this kind of thing before. How can you want to marry that guy? Look at his nose. How can you want to marry that guy? What are your children gonna? I mean, we've had that example kind of thing from the royals, and they were like, with Kate, they were like, well, how dark is this baby gonna be? Like, and the washed out thing about that is, I don't know how dark they expected this child to be, because Meghan is mixed race. She's not full-blooded black. She's not. She's got some white in her. So even if you are a little bit colorist, like how dark did they really think this child was gonna be? Like, I mean, it makes, as someone who is black, It makes no sense to me, because even in the Black culture, we have so many different shades. We've got darker, the sweet, darker the berry, the sweet, the juice, and we got those on the lighter spectrum. And to me, it makes no difference. We're all just black. So we've got some people that are the same complexion as Megan, but they can give birth to lighter children or darker children. But more times than none, a mixed race person, if they marry a white person, the likelihood is that the child is going to be lighter than them. I'm just saying, I mean, that's probably my ignorance, but I'm just saying that. So to even have that discussion about, are you sure you want to marry them? Because, you know, how dark is this child going to, how dark are your children going to be? What are your children's features going to look like? These are real comments that parents and family members say. So again, I say, how important is it that your family have to like and get on with your spouse? Because you need to think past that. For example, like family gatherings, it would be highly convenient. It would be highly convenient if your spouse can roll up in there and, you know, do a high five with your dad and give your mother a low five and your sister or brother a fist pump and chest pump. It would be amazing, you know. But the truth is, this ain't dream world. And if they haven't already done something that is going to cause your family members to feel a way about them, then they will do something later. And I really wonder what that's going to look like.
Yeah, but, you know, I will say something, though. And the point I'm going to say is that, you know, I think throughout the history of humankind, we have always lived in large communities. We've always lived in family settings. So for me, there is a reason why we have lived in those settings, because it's for our own protection. And something about being on your own or having this individualistic kind of perception, or even with marriage, it's just you and your husband, I think that's just very, very relatively new. It's relatively new to how we live in this modern age, but it doesn't mean that it's the complete answer, because what people are forgetting is that family, especially if it's in the right kind of setup, family is supposed to be there as a protection, and it should never ever be ignored. It shouldn't be ignored, because a family is the one that steps in when abuse is on the table. A family is the one that steps in where lies and deception that you cannot come across is put towards you. A family comes in when you are logging along 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 kids. That's when family come in. So you cannot pick and choose. You cannot pick and choose to always want to hear the nice things from your family and ignore sometimes the blunt and brutal truth. And that's what I think, that sometimes with this individualistic nature that we have, especially with modern day relationships, is that we don't actually want to sometimes in our relationship listen to the truth when it even comes from those protective forces, which is in the form of a family. And I will say that I'm not saying that we should always take on the advice of Uncle A, Mama B, or whatever. This is not what I'm saying, but I'm saying that we should not completely ignore the fact of how important extended family is to not only your own individual family, but also to the benefit of your children and your children's children. And another thing I will say as well about the role of tradition, maybe it's because of the type of person that I am, but I love culture and I love tradition. And where it makes sense, I think that it should be preserved and it should be cherished, as long as your husband and you yourself and your family both agree that you accept it. Sometimes dowry can be used as a way to gain control over one family member or another. But when it's done simply for the culture, when it's simply done for the tradition, it's so beautiful, and it won't be used for abuse. So this is what I'm saying. That where it comes to the dynamic of having a toxic family, I do agree with the separation and you clinging more to the direct husband or the direct wife, and forging a new future forward that's more positive, where in the future you can have a protective family unit. But when you have that protective family unit and you want to say, no, I don't want to do the tradition, or no, I don't want to listen to Mama A or Mama B, when Mama A and Mama B is telling you, I'm sorry, but your husband is not your husband. Your husband is somebody else's husband. And you don't want to hear words, you'll get burnt. I'm telling you, you'll get burnt. So that's why I'm kind of taking a cautious approach to saying, be with your husband. Because the reality is that there's another side to that coin. And the other side to that coin, some women face or some men face as abuse, as control, as an inability to escape their relationships, as an inability to find a way out and maybe even leave that marriage. So a family can, if done correctly, which has been done for hundreds of thousands of years, is actually be that protective force that surrounds you. That means that you're not going into life alone.
So before we move on to the next question, which I'm going to spin at Levine, just as a counteract to what you said. So are we now saying, you know, for people like yourself that might be on that fence of supporting family, and for the scenario we created with the Meg and so and many other people that are in the same situation, are we now trying to say that and when people are looking for spouses, they should be looking ideally for someone that will be able to fit into their family setup? Because remember, some people have a family setup and it's so strong that they might have, for example, we believe in this family that you should be marrying people from this type of tribe, or this type of background, or this type of class. Like in our family, we don't marry people that are not educated or don't have degrees, or we don't marry people that don't have some form of money or stability, because some people, obviously, they marry people that might not necessarily be working for whatever reason at that particular time. The man might be studying, but he's got potential, you know, and some families won't agree with that. No, that guy can't look after you. Sorry. How do we know that he's going to get a job at the end of his education? Blah, blah, blah. So, and then obviously, which you do know, some people are like, no, that person does family don't have no money. So why do you want to marry us that have money, someone that doesn't have money, or family that just average? So are you saying that in that side of the fence where families do protect, which is what they do, they protect their name, they protect their status, that people then should ideally be aiming for people of the same status to protect their family name, so to speak?
I think that
is loyalty to the family.
I think it would be super ignorant to say that when you do come from extremely different cultures, that you won't experience any trial, because the thing is, there is a reality of a clash of culture, the way you do things, even in your own direct marriage, like direct husband and wife. And sometimes even when you do come from the same tribe, but you've been raised in completely different settings, you're also going to face the same issues. So I'm not saying that the problems won't be there. I do believe in interracial marriages. I really do. And I do believe that even if, for example, your family believes that you should just get a guy that's already employed or is a multimillionaire or something, but the reality is that if you're more aware of the modern age, like if you're more aware of what's happening around you, then you will take a piece of what your parents have given you, or you will take a piece of what your family have given you, which is, okay, you get a guy that's hardworking. Maybe it can be interpreted as that. It doesn't mean he has to be rich. So I would say take a piece of what they have to offer, but also reflect it to the age that you're living in now, which is that the guy could lose his job tomorrow. And then what? Does that mean you leave him? So that's why I say I'm kind of in this middle ground where I'm still in support of the old way, and I'm still very much in support of the family way, because I see the value in it. But at the same time, I do understand that we cannot 100% relate to our parents' times, because it's not our parents' times, it's our times. It doesn't mean that we should completely disregard maybe the forewarnings that they're telling you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Winnie. So let's go straight to it, guys. The next and the last level. Where should your loyalties lie? Where do your loyalties lie? Your spouse or your family? So you are now married. And of course, some people want to still be involved because they believe family is marrying family, and they want to have a say in so many things. How involved should your family be in your relationship? But first of all, where's your loyalty lying now? I think everyone will be on the same page with this one, I think. But let's see anyway. Where do your loyalties lie? Your spouse or your family? Now you're married.
Well, I will say I am a strong advocate for using your coconut. And what I mean by that is using your head, is thinking, as in real thinking. Yes, your family has been there for you. Trust me, more times than none, your family will always be there for you. So I don't think that we should ever fear that if I decide to stick with my husband, my family will disown me or will turn away from me. That's very rare. I'm not saying it doesn't happen at all, but I'm saying it's very rare. Your family are kind of bound by blood, you know, and I think that's the advantage that we have with our family. As many times as we may upset them or may do things that are reckless or may make mistakes, and sometimes your relationships are your mistakes that if they don't end up too badly, you're able to recover from. Your family, most of the time, they're right there, you know, where you need them to be. And I'm not saying that you should then use your life to now experiment and take risks and expect your family to pick up the pieces. Not at all. What I am saying, however, is that, you know, you have your own life to live, and thank God that you have a good support network around you. And thank God that you have free will and you're able to make your own choices. You're able to learn from some mistakes that you make. There are some marriages that unfortunately end in divorce, you know, and there are some marriages that last till the end of time. Your family won't be able to foresee that all the time, and you won't be able to foresee that all the time. So really, all I can say is think and think very well. We did a live about domestic abuse and a lot of other, and we've done quite a few things on relationships, and we talked about red flags. You know, I think it's important to have individuals that you go to for counsel. They can be in the shape of your family members, key family members. They could also be external. I don't think it matters whether or not these individuals are family members or external, but there needs to be someone that you go to for counsel, you know. And I think as long as you have a source of counsel and of reasoning, and you're using your common sense, I think that's a good enough support network. Your family should ideally always be there to help you through a situation. So when you're married and your family start, you know, getting involved, in fact, I'm going to be a bit light. There was a Nigerian Nollywood movie I watched, a segment of it. And this man and his wife were about to get down to the dirty, you know, and the woman, sorry to be a bit explicit or descriptive, was on top of the man. I mean, they were just playing sort of thing. And the mother of the son entered the room. And she was like, oh my God, what is this? Don't you know that if you allow your wife to be on top of you, that means that she is taking your place as the head of the household, as the person who is on top? You need to come down. She told the girl to come down from there. Come down from there. The husband needs to be on top because he needs to cover you spiritually and all this stuff. And I mean, yes, it was entertainment. It was a movie. But I'm pretty sure that there are some mother-in-laws like that. Her intentions were probably good, but that could potentially be disruptive. It can start off quite humorous and, you know, funny, but after a while, it can become quite a huge inconvenience. Like, think about them mothers that they swear that they must come and live inside your new house, and they start causing problems between you and your spouse. Who are you choosing? Because your mom can or your dad can go back to their husband or their wife, you know, or I know this is going to sound insensitive, but they've kind of lived their life. They've kind of done their thing, you know. So why should you allow them to come and start mixing the pot in your relationship? Nah, not for me. Thank you.
Right.
Yes.
I have to agree with you on that, Anderslays. Once you sign that contract, and if you are married, you remember that day very well, because your signature was on that paper, your husband or wife's signature was on that paper, who else's signature was on that paper, as witnesses, not that they're bound to that contract, to death in part, to sickness and in health. So just based on that alone, it's supposed to be you and your spouse will ride or die. Do you get? That's how it be. Ride or die till death do you part. So your loyalty in that situation should lie with your spouse, and anything that happens in your relationship, be it with kids or finances, investments, it's between you and your spouse, because you are legally bound. Not just legally bound, but you're spiritually bound also in the eyes of the Lord. Because even you're going to God, you're going to church to ask for God's blessing, saying that this is the guy you want to, or this is the woman that you want to spend the rest of your life with. Not this is the mom that I want to spend the rest of my life with.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
They're basically external influences. That if you do give them some sort of leeway into your relationship, then they're external influencers. But internally, you know, your loyalty should be between you and your partner. So if Mama A or Papa B is there saying, look, I don't like the way that you make make food for your husband, oh, I don't like the way that you you know, the way you talk to your wife. That's their business.
Right.
Let them not like it. So at the end of the day, you know, it's you and your husband that will be in that house, nobody else. You're the ones that will wake up in the morning and see each other's faces, and the same faces you will go to bed at night every single day of your life. So if you want to start creating division and assigning your loyalties outside, you're only going to end up with a short marriage. You're going to be headed for divorce. That's just very simple. Obviously, there are other factors that take place in relationships. That I'm not saying it's totally easy. That, you know, having that bond or that partnership with your partner means that you're going to be smooth sailing for life. No, that's not what we're saying. But when we're looking at it practically, is that it's a very simple. Whenever there's going to be an issue in a relationship, if you go to court, they're not going to ask you to bring your mum. They're not asking you to bring your dad. They're asking you and your wife or your husband to come out and meet yourselves in court to figure out how to resolve your issues. And if not, then divorce. But until that divorce day, your loyalty should lie with your spouse.
Okay,
So be
really,
careful. Be careful with the choice of the partner that you pick, because once you make that choice,
that's it, fam.
Okay. Winnie, I'm just going to ask it very quickly. Just give me a yes or no before I go to a very interesting comment where we're going to answer another quick question on there that is highlighted, which is one of those things one has to think of. Winnie, spouse or family? Family girl.
Should I let you go first, Lady T?
Yeah. I mean,
so if I was spanner in the works.
I think I like to twist it up a bit. I believe your spouse is first, but then I also believe that your external has a connect. They still have a bit of a connection. So I always go first and second. I've not completely solely said 100% spouse and the family
Use
has
the brain, mate.
No, so I would say family first. I mean, not family first, spouse first, and then your other extended is second. So they kind of, what I'm trying to say is that they still kind of work hand in hand. And the only reason why I say that is because we have to think of cases and scenarios which are quite common, where the family may not necessarily like that individual, or even your wife may not necessarily like your family or your mother-in-law,
that's another one,
or your father-in-law. So what would you expect the husband to do? Yes, he's loyal to his wife, but do you expect him to now, which some families have had to make that harsh choice, cut off his mum, cut off his dad, or vice versa? The woman, the husband don't really like your mum because maybe thinks your mum is too inner, or your dad, or maybe they two had an issue between them that has been unresolved, you know, and unfortunately they've just came to hate themselves. Are you now going to say that she should cut off her mum and cut off her dad? That's another
that's another thing right there,
because that's a big one, and a lot of people do face that. So where would you now balance that? How would you balance it? Because they're, you know, are you going to start saying, okay, I'll be loyal to my husband, I don't want anything to do with my mum and dad, I'm gonna have to cut them off because he doesn't like them? Or I will be loyal to my wife and he's gonna, you know, they're gonna have to cut off whatever because he doesn't like, or whatever, or she doesn't like his family. What are we gonna do in those cases?
Well, I think the person that's saying you should cut that person off is the person that needs to be cut off.
Tell them, girl, say it. Girl, say it.
I think it does go hand in hand. I completely agree. But like I said, I think that if anyone is given ultimatums, then that person doesn't really have your best interest at heart. And maybe I'll take it back to what Miss Rolo said, which is think about yourself. Think about yourself. How is it going to affect you? Because maybe your auntie and your husband is fighting, or your auntie and your wife is fighting, but let them sort it out. You have peace of mind. You need to sit back. Sometimes you need to sit back, and I guarantee you in 5 days that thing is done and they're best friends. So sometimes it's just a case of just being chill, letting something just pass over. And think about yourself. Think about what makes you happy. Does it make you more happy to have a deep relationship with your mom? Then go for it, you know, because what's going to end up happening is you're going to be resentful of your partner. You're going to be resentful. And another thing as well is, for example, let's say your mum is sick one day and your husband thinks that by you taking care of your mum is giving too much attention away from him and the family. Are you going to now send your mum to some dodgy old people's home where they'll be stealing out of her purse?
Yeah.
So it
For
does
point.
go in hand. It really does. For me, it does.
It works hand in hand, and I sit on that fence as well. And I mainly sit on that fence because of the example that I gave you, which unfortunately sometimes it doesn't get resolved. I've heard of cases where the wife has had to go to the husband's side and neglect her family fully, you know, or the husband's side has fully been cut off because the wife didn't like the husband's family. So he's now cleaved, of course, he's cleaved onto his wife, and they've now set up their own nest in a completely different land. But the parents don't chat. They don't have no relationship with their son anymore because the wife doesn't want anything to do with his family. Maybe because of the way she's been treated in the past, but that never got resolved. But what did they do? They chose the loyalty. And I think it's the same thing with Prince Harry. Who knows? Probably not speaking to his dad at the minute. He's with Meghan. He cleaved onto his wife.
As in, but you know, this is the thing about Harry. And I think that a lot of people are forgetting one key thing about Harry. Harry has never been that ultra responsible royal. He just never has been. He's never had that track record. He's never been William. You know, William has always been the prim and proper because he's going to be king. But Harry has always just been like, he's doing his thing, man. Harry just has a good time. I don't know if it's because maybe he's not going to be king. I don't know. But, you know, he's always been that. So he's always been that way. So the view that Meghan is the one that's controlling him and has isolated him from his family and, you know, all of that stuff is quite far-fetched, you know. I'm not saying it's completely impossible, but just judging off the kind of character that Harry has had, what we've been privy to seeing anyway, it doesn't tell me that. And I think this is one of the things that we need to use as our judgment when we're looking at potential partners that our family members are bringing. Like, how much are they changing? How much influence does this person have over that person's life? How much are they controlling towards that person? How much has that person changed since they met this individual? Now, like Winnie said, it could be a case whereby this individual is behaving a certain way only with their family and they behave another way outside. But for someone like Harry, who has always like worn his shirt quite loosely, are we really surprised that he's not really that bothered about moving to another country and doing his own thing? This guy would go out clubbing. He'll be dancing on national even Prince Charles, he goes and he has a good time in Ghana and in all these places. So I don't know how I don't know how this thing became. I feel like their situation is quite a normal one that has been brought into the limelight and highly magnified because of who they are. But if we're to use our true logical and normal reachable reasoning, I'm not saying that anything that has been said is okay, you know, because I mean I wasn't there, so I can't even vouch for anybody. But what I'm saying is that we should to a degree expect a level of conflict, you know, when it comes to marriage discussions.
Because
it's different families coming together. Just to say, it's different families coming together, different values, sometimes different perspectives. Obviously, two people are never the same, let alone a whole bunch of people coming together to find common ground. So yes, it is expected, but I think what's important is that we need to make sure that there's a level of respect that's maintained on both sides. I think respect is very important, and honor. And so yes, we can come with our differences, but once there should be a boundary that's set in place that isn't crossed, because that could cause all kinds of messy situations.
Yes, sir.
So that's good. I agree.
Right. Sorry, can I just quickly spin something? Just one last question, just to spin it in a different direction as well.
I'm going to put a last one after that, only because of the sake of this guy in the audience.
I'll be very quick.
Go ahead.
This thought process just came to mind. So in a situation where, let's say, your parent, who's a single parent, meets someone that they want to get together with or marry or whatnot, and let's say you as their child doesn't necessarily agree or isn't in support of that partner that your mum or dad is going to marry. Now, in that scenario, would our perspective still be the same? Would the mothers as a mother or as a father, would your loyalty lie with your
Thank you. I'm gonna like throw everything around in my house because I'm so gassed.
That's a very good question.
Take it away, ladies. Take it away.
Exactly.
My perspective would be exactly the same, because I think that, for example, if your dad is going to remarry, then you obviously come in as a protective force. You know, you want to make sure that this woman, let's say she's 20 or 30 years younger, you need to make sure that she's not a, what's her name, Nicole? What's her name? She's a gold digger or something. You know, you want him to be happy. You want your dad to be happy.
But if your dad's gonna be happy with a young, dumb, whatever, then don't deprive him of his happiness now.
As a protective.
Okay, let me put it this way. What if your child did not like the, let's say, you know, God forbid, you move, you know, you divorce and remarry, God forbid, and you meet someone that you really love with them, and, you know, this person is like someone that you get on so well with, but your children have a problem with that person. Where would your loyalty lie? With your children? Or would it lie with
very difficult
husbands, or why?
That's such a good question.
It has to be reasonable, though. I mean, if you just say like what Anders Slade said, your nose is too broad or whatever, that's unreasonable. That's ridiculous.
But these situations happen.
Whatever it was that you said.
These are real life situations.
Yeah, I think when things get silly, like how can you even take that advice when the advice is coming from foolery? Doesn't make sense.
But me personally, because I know it's a very common one, and you know, especially with children, they're so protective, more so of their mothers. Yeah. And when a spouse does, or when a guy does try and come in, sometimes they simply just do not like that guy for no reason. I know that I'm possibly sure that could happen. And even if you ask the child, what's the reason why you don't like him? They'll still say,
you'll never be my daddy, or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Key one. You'll never be my daddy. You know.
Wait, hold on, guys. Sorry. Let's not assume that these children are children age. So I know you're thinking about it in the child sense. I'm talking about people who are, say, in the young adult age, you know, teenagers going into adulthood, you know, that kind of age range as well.
Thank you for that. I'm still stemming off of that, because my stance is that you still got to do what's best for you as the person that's going to be married to that person. So I still feel that you come first, and it's your choice, not necessarily your child should not be the one choosing your partner for you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. So one day that child's going to go off and get married, fam.
They may not like the one that you like, but they may like another one for you. But you may not necessarily like that guy for whatever reason, but your child doesn't know the ins and outs. But they will never really know the ins and outs. It's still between you and that person that you want to be with. And sorry, child, you're just going to have to get to learn to like who I've picked. I would like to think that I've picked the person that can fit into our unit for the right reasons. You know, I don't think that anybody's going to pick someone that's intentional, abusive, or going to be any harm to their child. I like to think the person has picked someone that is a good person all rounder, but maybe the child doesn't necessarily see it yet.
Yeah, so exactly. Key word there, see it.
You know, should be able to pick that person and yes, be loyal to that person, and your child will catch up when they're ready. You know, it'll be a problem a problem child at the beginning, that's for sure, for whatever reason, but they'll come round eventually. You know, well, I should hope. But that's just me. That's my take. Mine is to my partner, mate. Rap. If you don't like it, go live with your daddy.
Jog on, mate. If you don't like it,
go live with your biological daddy. I've done my fair share. We've done enough. I'm making to teenager. Let him go finish the years off. Oh my God. I want me to enjoy. So yeah.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you. I think Amanda, did you want to?
Had an answer.
I thought Amanda wanted to say. Maybe not. Maybe.
No, I'm just looking at.
I was going to go back.
I'm just looking at some comments. Yeah, I just saw a comment that come up from Venice. I hope I say your name correctly. Please forgive me if I didn't. Yes, so Venice or Veniza. We lived a similar situation. My father remarried, and now only part of the family spends Christmas at my dad's place. This is a reality, you know. This is a reality, and the truth is sometimes you just kind of have to respect people's decisions, you know. And like I said earlier, if it ends up going well, then amazing, you know. But if the relationship that you're in ends up turning sour, then it's always ideal and hopeful. You'd be hopeful that your family would always be there to support you and pick up the pieces. Yes, some people may be a little bit sour and be like, well, we told you so, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, family is, I like to believe my family is there for life. We may not get on because of some decisions that I've made, but I hope that we will always be able to come back together at some point in the future. And I mean, as Venice kindly shared with us about her family experience, I completely understand, that some people would just not be able to move on from that because they may see something in the new spouse that they just don't like, or that they see as warning signs. And I think that everybody's entitled to their opinion, but to a degree, for myself personally, I would try my best to support my loved one and let them know that regardless of what happens, I'm going to be there. I may not be at Christmas, or I may not feel comfortable being in the same room as that person for whatever reasons. God forbid, it might tie into one of the topics we did a long time ago, like your sister or your brother or your friend is dating your ex. Maybe that's the reason that I personally, don't want to hang around with this couple anymore. I don't know. The reasons aren't, I guess they don't always matter. But I think as long as that person knows that regardless of what happens in the end, the family can eventually come together. It's so tricky, It's so tricky because you're not just dealing with the two individuals that want to get married, but you're dealing with a whole family unit, a vast amount of characters, and experiences all in one melting pot. And sometimes, people make the choice to do what makes them happy at that point in time. And really and truly, the only person who's going to be responsible to answer for their actions are those individuals that made the decision. So
Thank you, and the slays. So just the last one before we round up, because I want us to round up, because I've been saying I'm going to answer this person's question in the comments. We haven't done it because that lovely bonus question creeped in from Shizo, which was fantastic, very necessary. Carl Eringley has
say it.
I think we should round up with this one because I think it's an important one. He says sometimes, unfortunately, some families support the new couple financially. It makes the new couple dependent on the family. What's our thoughts on that?
That's a good one. My thoughts on that.
Then, and how do they manage that?
My thoughts on that is, if they're paying for it, your loyalty lies with them, or it's very simple. Because money talks, bullshit walks. Excuse my French. Excuse my French, but I did say excuse my French. But to keep it 100, yes, that's where it would lie. That's why some people pay for their own wedding, or they pay for their own life. You get me? Because you don't want people to control you like a puppet because of money. So your loyalty will most likely have to lie with them because they hold the bread, they hold the mullah. And when you don't, and if you do something that they don't like, you don't have your own expense, your own money, then you're left with the dust.
You see the way I see it, that's a donation, fam.
That's a donation.
That's a donation.
The guy said, if you're relying, I think, can you read that comment again? Let me just make sure that we're not mistaken.
I'm also going to do a continuation because he's actually just commented.
Yeah, he's continued
so
it.
I will continue from what he said, but let me start from the beginning. He says, sometimes, unfortunately, some families support the new couple financially. It makes the new couple dependent on the family. What are our thoughts? And then he goes on to say, I'm just going to merge it in, but should the family give their help conditionally? Shouldn't the family give their help without strings attached?
Exactly. So this is the thing.
Honestly, that's how I see it.
If they're supporting financially, are we just, because we're not just talking about supporting financially in terms of the wedding day, just giving you a little
we're talking about after the marriage.
That's what I'm saying.
Maybe the family gives you a house, they give you their house to live in.
That's why I said read it again.
Yeah.
Because that obviously says that you are dependent on them, and whoever you're dependent on controls you. They control you.
But you know what?
That's why you have to be careful. You have to be careful.
I agree.
With money, trust me, things can take a different turn altogether. We know that.
I agree, but I think
it's a different dynamic altogether, and that's why I say that. Unfortunately, I wouldn't want. No one should be put in this situation, especially if the family is giving you money in order to control you. That's a very unfortunate situation, and if that is happening, then you and your spouse need to knock heads together and try and get out of that situation and gain your own independence. Otherwise, you are at the mercy of that person who's spending, who's controlling you through the money.
I understand.
But when it comes to parents, though, which is what I think he's trying to ask, when it comes to parents who usually say that they're working for the future of their children, so we want to give a contribution to our children. It could be through my house or form of asset, which sometimes happens, or financial flamboyant contribution for them to start their life as a young couple. Should they really be putting conditions to that, especially as parents?
They shouldn't. That's why I'm like, that's a donation.
Yeah,
they shouldn't.
It's a donation. I like Audrey's comment though. She said, if my husband and I can't cope financially, then there is a bigger problem, and that bigger problem is our problem. I don't need. I think that the key word in what Carl said in the comment that he said and the comment he made is dependent. If you're dependent on the financial support that you're getting, then okay, that's you signing over your marriage license to whoever you are being dependent on. But it should not be given conditionally.
Exactly.
Parents should not support their children financially conditionally. Like Audrey said, there's a bigger problem. And if there's a family member or a parent that sees that problem and wants to make a keyword their donation, then I'm cool. I'm all hands on deck. If you want to support me, I'll take it, and I'll be very happy. But don't ever get mistaken to think that if you give me some money, that you think that you have a say in how I run things in my relationship. Number one, I'm not that kind of girl. And I'm sorry, you will be highly disappointed. And you'll learn a very valuable lesson that day. And I won't pay you back the money. Number two, because it's a donation. Number two, if you're not going to support me from your heart, then don't even bother, mate. Don't even stress yourself. I don't even really need it, Thankfully, I guess I'm a bit privileged. I'm in a country now where I can go and claim benefits. I can claim that check. I'm not saying anyone should depend on that. But if you can't give me financial support from a good place in your heart, then I'll rather go elsewhere. That's just.
I think that they do have a say, though. Personally, I think they have a say because, for example, your parents give you and your newlyweds, a house to live in rent free. I do believe that your parents, the parents that have given you that completely rent free, do deserve an element of respect back.
Of course, yeah, definitely.
Sometimes,
but not the remote control to your marriage. Are you having a laugh, mate?
I don't think it needs to be taken to those extremes all the time. I want to bring it back to something that's a bit more realistic. And
that's realistic.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, like every day,
I see what you mean. Yeah, that is quite extreme.
And the thing is, it's like if people are in different situations. So first of all, we'll be sensitive to the fact that some people, for example, like Corona, during this Corona time, they've lost. Gosh, I can't even talk. They've lost their jobs, so they are more dependent on family. And sometimes family do step in, and maybe they have given you rent money for 3 months. It's covered your back. And then you're going to allow your husband to go and start disrespecting your dad or something.
No, not at all.
This is what I'm saying. But sometimes family do give a helping hand, and they actually do deserve that respect back.
But it should be from a good place, though. It shouldn't be from a place whereby you want to control. Have you guys watched this movie? I think it's this movie, Meet the Fockers. It's F.O., by the way. And I think, if I remember correctly, if I'm not mistaken, this dad is so controlling over his family. I think he's a human lie detector as well. So I think he eventually, I don't think, maybe it's a different movie. But anyway, I'm just going to tell you about this scene whereby the dad says to the guy that his daughter's going to marry, his to-be son-in-law, that he should take on their family name. So this guy, and I think he's going to help him out financially or give him a job. But the guy that is coming to wed their daughter should take on the daughter's name or his to-be wife's name or the father-in-law's name, as opposed to it being the other way around. That's an example. I mean, it's ridiculous. But there actually are people out there like that. Yes, I know that there are in some cultures that is the norm, but where that is not the norm in your culture, how much are you going to allow parents, family members, sisters, brothers, uncles, aunties to be clicking the remote in your relationship?
I mean, Andrew, what you just said, Carl has created the scenario already. And I think he's creating it because it is something that happens very commonly in our culture. I mean, he says sometimes the father-in-law, might then employ the husband or wife, and then they are beholden for as long as they remain employed. So all those families that own businesses, because the child was not able to get a job or whatever, or the partner don't have a job, so supporting them financially or being dependent could be in the form of, okay, I will employ you into our company. Come and work for me. You know, that means
you must do what I say.
This is why I'm saying that whoever you are financially dependent on controls you, which is why it's very important that you have your own independence. We're not saying that we're not willing to accept financial support, but financial support is different from being dependent on that financial support. You get financial support from time to time, it's not a problem. But when you're dependent on that person for your food,
that's pretty useless. Sorry, God forgive me.
Survival. To be dependent on you for your own survival and that of your family, you're playing into very dangerous territory.
You should be married. You should be married.
You have to be not take employment from your father-in-law.
No, if you don't know where, if you're gonna, that's a what they call them. You know, where those women or men marry someone that's highly looted, and they only get with that person for the convenience of money. But in this case, it would be the family. I'm just taking this in a slight direction. So are we saying that this individual has seen a family that they can depend on, ends up depending on that family, and as in they end up depending on this family financially? It's tricky though. Because I was going to say, well, what do you expect? But at the same time, we could say, because we could say, what do you expect? As in, obviously, if you're going to be dependent on someone financially, then what do you expect? But at the same time, like Triumph, Lady T, sorry, your government name, like you said, like, you know, what if you can't help it? What if you are unable, like for whatever, it could be temporary, it could be permanent, we don't know. Yeah. But what if for this moment you are unable to be employed by anyone else, and you have to have money coming in from somewhere, and it just so happens to be, you know, it's tricky.
That's why you have to be careful, because you're at their mercy. But the hope is that you're going to be working for that family, or that family is going to be respectful and honorable, and not tie conditions to their support. I think that's the key element.
That's the key
element is the condition that is tied to them helping you financially. That's the thing. I think that's a wrong thing to do as a parent, is when you're helping your children or helping your children's partner, you should not be helping them because you want to exploit that situation. Because there are
they'll say
that are exploitative. They exploit their children, they exploit maybe their son-in-law or whatever for their own ulterior motives. And we need to be realistic. Not all families are singing kumbaya and holding hands. There are some real people in families that are demonic spirits.
It's true.
That there are some things, like some families, the only similarity or tie that you have together is blood. Other than that, you could be polar opposites.
Exactly.
And that's why you need to be careful. You need to be careful who you get your support from. Know the person you're asking to help you. It's to get support from someone that
before they make you wear jacket on your wedding day. Because I know there's some people, they marry someone just because the money's coming from outdoors. The mother-in-law will now come and be like, "You're showing too much flesh." In my day, we used to wear bolero or some, you know, them little jackets, and I make you wear them 90s jackets.
They'll now tell you what wedding dress that you should wear. They'll now tell you what's going to happen at your tradition. They'll now tell you it's too much, man. We're not saying don't get help from your family members. We're just saying be wise about who you receive help from, because you could end up regretting that. They could cause more damage than good.
That makes sense, though.
But if your family are helping you, I think that you are bound to what they have to say. So don't expect family to be giving you donations and then you still thinking that you can do whatever you want. You know what I mean?
I disagree to
I want to be a donation.
I disagree to
I think the respect is flatline. That's a basic level. But Auntie, drop that remote control. Drop the remote. Drop the remote, because that ain't it. I think
That's it. Well, we come to a close.
We have.
It on longer. Thank you so much, ladies, once again for an effective and efficient, wonderful, loyal Saturday.
Enjoyed it as always.
Well,
yeah.
Thank you for joining in with us as well. We will be back again in 2 weeks' time with our biological clock. Abby?
We certainly are. You know, I like this comment that I think I really like Denise, you know. I hope I'm saying your name properly. She just made a very valid comment, and she's like, otherwise that couple becomes the main Christmas topic, mate. So best be careful about your moves.
So
thank you so much, you guys. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for the involvement. We really appreciate you guys. Today has been really light and fun, but at the same time, there's been quite a few things that I've learned. I love it.
Yes. So we will be back in 2 weeks' time. Tell a friend. We will. You'll see our flyer coming through again for our next interesting hot topic on biological clock, where we're going to be talking about really and truly, does that exist? Do we have a biological clock in this journey of life? When it comes to relationships, when it comes to children, when it comes to your next moves. Women, do you have a biological clock? Men, do you have a biological clock? Really and truly, your 40s, you're single, you're in your 30s, you're single. Is there a problem?
Are you on the shelf? You on the shelf, mate?
Are you
collecting dust?
So we will be talking about all these interesting things, and I think it will be a big one. So please tell anybody who is single and sashing, or who is wondering their next move on what to do with their life, because maybe they're getting to their late 40s, to their late 30s, whatever it is, to their late 20s, and they're wondering what is going on. Do I have a clock on my life? We're going to talk about this. And what's your next moves? So, without further ado, guys, thank you so much again.
Thank you. We love you guys.
Have a lovely evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I gotta tell you something I could do. I could be running around chasing you, but I won't, 'cause I got better things to do. Rather spend my precious time chasing somebody who loves me too.